Yes, it's time now for the big question in which we tackle a major news story of the day. And today sees the start of the International Environmental Summit COP27 in Egypt. But as world leaders look to gather and agree new climate goals, which could see a change in our way of life, such as what and when we drive, how we heat our homes, how much we fly, and even the food we eat, is the push for net zero undemocratic, given that the public do not have a direct say? Who voted for green taxes and eating bugs? To debate this, I'm delighted to welcome former Conservative Government Minister, best-selling author and broadcaster Anne Widdecombe, and ex-Labour MP and another popular author whose book Scandal at Dolphin Square is out now and I'm told is a cracking piece of history that reads as a thriller. It's Simon Danczuk. Simon, let me start with you if I can. Welcome to the programme. What do you think? Is net zero undemocratic? I don't remember my viewers voting for, a net zero existence.
Well, I think it is democratic. We had a general election in 2019. The political parties clearly had a manifesto and an agenda as part of that general election. The Conservative Party stood on a manifesto pledge of zero emissions by 2050, and that's what people voted for. So they know what they've been voting for, and they should be getting what they voted for. And a lot of opinion polls show that the public generally support reducing emissions. So I think there is support for it, and I do think it's democratic.
They support it, Simon, until it hits them in the wallet, when they've got to go and buy a Tesla and get rid of their diesel car, when they've got to have a heat pump boiler rather than the trusty boiler they've had for years.
Well, this is the intervention that government has to make, and I think it's fair to say that previous governments, the one that Anne Widdecombe was in, the Labour government under Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, just did not do enough in terms of investing in this area, not enough in terms of nuclear power. We have the least efficient, energy efficient housing stock in Europe, so much more should have been done on that. So it's been a failure of previous governments and the current government to do enough on this issue. And had they been doing more, then the public themselves would be in a better position in terms of the infrastructure for electric cars, in terms of having more energy efficient homes. So there's been a failure in the past, and we can't be moving forward in terms of failure on this issue again.
Yes, and Simon, you're right to call out both Blair and arguably Cameron as well for dropping the ball when it came to nuclear. I couldn't agree with you more, but I don't think that my viewers will take kindly to the international global elite flying off in their private jets to Egypt to negotiate our futures, Simon.
Well, I think they are right to be critical of this sort of approach, and just gathering together and talking about this issue rarely solves anything.
It's a talking shop.
Well, exactly. We need to see action. And that's what this government needs to do. It needs to start taking action. It needs to start investing. If we're going to spend money, don't just throw money at people's energy bills. Help them by reducing the energy that they need to use. We need to create less demand in the system. And that means investing in green jobs, investing in retrofitting homes, investing in the infrastructure that helps us have a cleaner environmental and energy policy.
Anne Widdecombe, in relation to net zero, I think plenty of voters out there will take the view that they didn't vote for living in a cold house. They didn't vote to have to cycle everywhere, and they didn't vote to be poorer.
Well, this is the whole point. I mean, it's all very well to say the public are broadly supportive of working towards reducing emissions and even possibly working towards eventually net zero. What the public are not in favour of is, first of all, being obliged to buy a particular type of car, which is going to be much more expensive, not particularly easy to run, still in near infancy as far as the technology goes. Try and find a charge point, for example. They didn't vote to have expensive boilers thrust upon them. They didn't vote for the the actual mechanics which the government is elected to promote. And I was on a panel not that long ago, which was cheering on my Labour opponent until the moment came when I said that if I've got to buy an electric car after 2030, I should be buying second-hand petrol cars for the rest of my life. And they all began cheering because nobody actually wants to be told that they have to spend more money in a certain way. People want to be in charge of their own decisions. And, in a democratic society, that is exactly what they should be. And the billions that we're putting into, climate change, the absolute billions that we're putting into it, we could be spending on the nurses' pay rise.
Anne Widdecombe, whether it's the dystopian World Economic Forum, who are completely unelected, led by the terrifying Bond villain that is Klaus Schwab, whether it's the talking shop that is COP27, populated by out-of-touch billionaires, this is the elite storyboarding our lives.
No, I couldn't agree more. I really couldn't agree more. I mean, I objected a few years ago when the government decided you could only have a certain type of light bulb, the state in your light bulbs. Then some councils were actually deciding to put microchips in wheelie bins. I don't think they actually did in the end. That's what they were proposing. The state in your rubbish. The state is in everything. And Tories believe in a small state. Rishi Sunak should be promoting a small state.
Simon, you were a cracking MP, and you are a Democrat through and through. Does it not bother you, the spectacle of the likes of Bill Gates and Tony Blair and Bill Clinton essentially planning what the future's going to look like for us plebs?
Well, I'm not sure that I agree precisely with your analysis. What we have to do is reduce our reliance on fossil fuels. And I suspect that one of Anne's problems is that she denies that climate change is occurring. And what we've got to do is then enable and encourage the public to do more around this issue. And it's not nanny statism, as Anne is implying. It's about providing guidance, encouragement, investment in these crucial issues, because what we have to do is reduce our reliance on fossil fuels. That's the basis of it. And in the UK, we must do all we can to do that.
Simon, can't we use some fossil fuels? What about very, very clean, small-engined petrol cars? I wonder whether there's going to be a big headache in the years to come with the mining of all of these rare minerals like lithium and cadmium for those electric cars.
Well, the technology is developing all the time at a very quick pace. I think we have to take advantage of that. In the UK, what we should be doing, because we're very strong in terms of science and technology, we should really be leading the way on these issues, not falling in behind other countries in terms of leadership. We should be leading the way and developing these technologies that can provide an advantage to the country and to its people. Where I do disagree with Labour's policy, and we heard it today from Ed Miliband, this idea of giving money to developing countries like Pakistan, I think is the most stupid policy I have ever heard. And if Labour are going to rely on Ed Miliband to get them elected at the next general election, then I fear they won't be winning it. That's the problem.
You're right there, Simon, and we'll be discussing this crazy idea of reparations for the Industrial Revolution at 10 o'clock in My Take at 10. Simon, you weren't afraid of criticising your own party as a Labour MP. You were spirited and independent. What do you think about Keir Starmer's latest brainchild, which is a state-sponsored energy company investing in unproven and flaky renewables?
I think we have to make much more investment in renewables. There's no doubt about that. Wind farms on land and onshore and offshore.
Simon,
more solar panels.
The Germans have invested over 200 billion euros in renewables over the last 10 years, and they now face a winter fuel crisis. Yep. A fat lot of good it did them.
Well, we have to invest more in alternative energies. There's no alternative.
Well, Germany did it, Simon. It didn't work.
Well, I'm a big advocate
it's
of
an
nuclear power. Some of the solution is nuclear power. Right. That's what we need to see. And we should have been doing that many years ago. And I think that's part of the solution.
And on that, I'm totally with you. Definitely nuclear all the way. Anne, please come in. You're positively exploding. I think that the anger that you contain within your body, Anne, could fuel a town for a couple of years.
Well, I'd like to think it could. The reason that I was indicating rather vigorously that I wanted to come in is that it's all very well talking, as Simon does, about the UK, should be doing all these things, but it's a disproportionate response. The UK is responsible for about 1% of all these emissions. China and India are belting the stuff into the atmosphere on a daily, hourly basis. And if we really want to influence the climate, if we can. But if we really want to do that, that's where we should be looking, not at our pathetic little 1%, when we could spend the money which is needed in more immediate circumstances.
Look, what a great debate. What a great debate it's been between two political luminaries and two best-selling authors. Anne, you wrote that lovely book, The Clematis Tree, and lots of other wonderful works of fiction. And let me tell you that Simon is a talented scribe as well. His latest book is called Scandal at Dolphin Square. It's out now, and the reviewers are saying it's a cracking piece of history that reads like a thriller. And Simon, I think you're joining us in the studio soon for Mark Meets. I'm looking forward to that. And of course, Anne is with us every Sunday right up until Christmas as our wise political head. And see you in a week's time. Simon, catch you soon. Brilliant stuff. What's your reaction to that debate? Is the push for net zero undemocratic? Lots of emails are coming in, and people have pointed out that the net zero agenda was in the manifesto of both the Tories and Labour, and therefore it is democratic. Well, look, we asked you on Twitter, because we're very democratic, is it undemocratic? Well, 87.4% say yes, it's undemocratic, whilst 12.6% say no. There you go. The people have spoken.